This is Cristobal Balenciaga, the true courtier who revolutionized the history of fashion, the sculptor-tailor, the fashion titan, the architect of haute couture, the one and only true courtier. These are only a few of the names that prominent members of the fashion industry, including Coco Chanel, Christian Dior, Hubert de Givenchy, and Emanuel Ungaro, have used to describe Cristobal Balenciaga, one of the biggest influences in haute couture. He not only challenged notions of femininity in the feminine silhouette, but he also nudged fashion to its limits by designing works of art that defy categorization. He is commonly referred to as the King of Couture, but originality is one aspect he always strived for. And like most fashion brands, Cristobal has had its fair share of ups and downs. At some point, he had to accept that the dream was over. Through strife and struggle, he was able to make a name in the fashion industry. But how did this introvert who valued his faith over pleasing the media become such a significant 20th century fashion influencer? Stay tuned to find out. On January 21, 1895, Cristobal was born in the modest Spanish fishing town of Gutiérrez in the Basque Country. Not too long, he became exposed to fashion through his mother, who happened to be a seamstress. The finest and hottest women in the community were among her clients. When Cristobal was just 12 years old, he started an apprenticeship at a tailor's shop in the nearby resort city of San Sebastian, where he opened his first fashion company in 1917 under the name Isa, which is a diminutive of his mother's maiden name. Later, he opened stores in Madrid and Barcelona. The Spanish royal families and fashionable aristocrats were fans of his creations. Unfortunately, he had to close his business in 1937 because of the Spanish Civil War. Soon after, he relocated to Paris, established the House of Balenciaga, and quickly established himself as a designer of unwavering standards. There, the gifted designer joined the ranks of well-known courtiers like Maine Boucher, Elsa Schiaparelli, and Coco Chanel. At his Avenue George V Altier, Cristobal held his first runway presentation in August of 1937, showcasing a collection that was largely influenced by the Spanish Golden Age. Throughout his career, Cristobal interpreted a variety of historical patterns. Although his early entry into the fashion industry offered him an advantage, his unmatched grasp of the ability to manipulate textiles, dramatic use of texture and color, and superb craftsmanship definitely set him apart. He pioneered new female silhouettes and previously unseen shapes, paving the way for contemporary design. Most designers begin their construction process with the sketch, but Cristobal started with the fabric. As a result, many designers praised him for his unmatched knowledge of the art and architecture of clothing. He achieved prominence in the world of popular fashion thanks to the wearability, accuracy, and appeal of his clothing. By 1939, the French press had acclaimed Cristobal highly as a revolutionary force in fashion, and buyers and clients were vying for access to his line. The Nazis were enormous fans of French couture, even as World War II got underway, and they generally gave the courtier the choice of siding with them or continuing to operate or being forced out of business. As a result, many well-known brands such as Louis Vuitton, Chanel, Hugo Boss, Dior, and of course Balenciaga have strong ties to the Nazi Party. Balenciaga would create clothes for high-ranking Nazi women in exchange for keeping his altier. There were claims that he supposedly had extra hands through the inmates or at least permitted them to copy his designs for the Nazi women. Just to be clear, the records were lost at the end of the war. Thus, the book doesn't expressly mention any designer brands. By the end of the war, the Nazis had drastically diminished their rivals to a smaller number of businesses, the majority of whom were having trouble locating fabric in post-war Paris. A steady stream of fabric was delivered to Balenciaga from Italy, Spain, and France, many of which had exclusivity contracts giving him a competitive advantage, as really the only courtier with this quality of fabric. This was due to Cristobal's connections and his notoriety for his expert handling of fabric. By launching many groundbreaking designs in the 1950s, he proceeded to refine his clothing lines and Spanish influence. Many of Cristobal's most famous designs were influenced by his Spanish ancestry. His wide-hipped Infanta outfit from the late 1930s drew inspiration from the portraits painted by the Spanish artist Diego Velázquez in the 17th century. The traditional mantilla shawls, used by women during special occasions and Spanish Holy Week, as well as flamenco costumes, matador clothes, and black lace were other common themes. Later in his career, in the 1950s, Cristobal introduced new shapes to women's fashion that had never been seen before. As he improved and revamped the same concepts from season to season, these unconventional designs eventually developed. Volume was used at the back of his semi-fit lines in the middle of the 1950s dresses and overcoats that were suited at the front but had loose, weighty backs. The baby doll outfit, another piece from the late 1950s that abstracted the body, skimmed the waist with a trapeze-like form. The stunning four-pointed envelope dress, displayed the year before he shut the house, exemplifies how his abstraction peaked in his late 1960s masterpieces. His favorite fabric, the rigid material with lightweight silk gazar, was molded into a sculpture. Only 2 were sold, and 1 was returned by the customer because she couldn't comprehend how to use the bathroom in it. Ava Gardner, Gloria Guinness, and Mona von Bismarck, one of the richest women in the world, were just a few of the glitziest women that Balenciaga clothed in the 1950s and 1960s. Mona von Bismarck ordered everything from ball gowns to gardening shorts from the haute couture. He preferred dressing women with a great sense of style, and he frequently had incredibly devoted customers. He soon became the fashion titan that we all know. Cristobal was a fairly private person in comparison to several other well-known designers of the time. Throughout his 50-year career, he resisted courting the media, conducting just 1 interview. Despite being elusive, Cristobal sparked a revolution in fashion and continues to be admired by his contemporaries like Christian Dior and Coco Chanel, and the latest top designers. According to French designer Emanuel Ungaro, Balenciaga built the foundation of modernity in fashion. The demise of the Balenciaga house was a result of a change in events in the late 1960s. An era came to an end with the closing of Balenciaga's fashion house in 1968 and his passing 4 years later. In 1968, when his design firm shut down, Mona von Bismarck allegedly locked herself in her room for 3 days straight out of shock and genuine grief. However, the master's daring architectural forms, inventive pattern cutting, and use of novel materials have all remained highly influential. The Balenciaga brand was relaunched in 1986 by a number of different creative directors. Particularly noteworthy are Demna Gvasalia, the contemporary creative director who keeps the name Balenciaga in the public eye today, and Nicolas Ghesquière, who is largely recognized for restructuring the brand from 1997 to 2012. Both designers have been closely involved with the Balenciaga house archives and have drawn inspiration for their cut, shape, and material choices from the master's initial designs. As a matter of fact, the V&A is home to the UK's greatest collection of Balenciaga clothing and headpieces. Cecil Beaton, a well-known society photographer, used his connections to put together a notable collection of 20th century couture for the museum. This bridged a sizable gap in the museum's collection and served as the inspiration for Cecil Beaton's groundbreaking exhibition, Fashion, an Anthology, which opened in 1972. The current generation of fashion designers continues to draw inspiration from Balenciaga items, which are among the most frequently studied in the fashion industry. Today, this brand has undergone numerous transformations from its inception as a pioneer of haute couture to its current status as a staple of posh street style. It still remains one of the biggest billion-dollar fashion houses in the world. Furthermore, Balenciaga's history is worth knowing because it's a very intriguing one. But what do you think of the fashion brand? We'd love to know your thoughts in the comments. Don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel. See you in the next video.